Famer, John McClain, Tuesdays, most every Tuesday, with us on 365 Sports. And we will get into the Baylor-Texas men's basketball game with John. But, John, let's start with Chris Mortensen. Greatness. Everybody, how texts that have been shared that he would send either young reporters or whoever who have been honored. He seemed to be like just somebody that was not perfect, because nobody's perfect, but what an incredible gentleman and a great journalist reporter.
Chris, I met him in the 80s when he covered the Braves, and then he covered the Falcons for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And then he left for the national publication. I think it was the National, like so many journalists did, and it folded shortly because the guy that put the money behind it from Mexico pulled the plug on all these great journalists, and he landed on his feet, and he went to ESPN as a reporter. Chris was on the road every week during the season. He didn't like being on the road every week during the season. So the expansion Jaguars, with Coach Tom Coughlin, who was also general manager, was going to hire Chris as the director of research and have Chris do a lot of projects for him, putting together information because Chris had such good contacts. And then ESPN told him, okay, you want to spend more time with your family. You don't have to travel every week. We'll bring you into the studio more. And that's when he was a great information guy. People trusted him. They gave him information because they knew he would use it in the right way and he would never burn them. He followed on the heels of the late, great Will McDonough from the Boston Globe, who was the first writer to go to TV. He worked for NBC and CBS as a scoopmeister. But Chris took it to the next level, and then Adam Schefter's taken it into even a whole new stratosphere. And it's now there's so many of those guys out there, it's hard to keep up with them. But Chris was such a class act on and off the air, but behind the scenes, everybody liked him and respected him, and he's going to be missed by a lot of people.
John, the Combine was this week. I know you didn't get to go, which is one of your favorite things. What are your thoughts? Anything pop out of there? I mean, obviously, times and all that, but anything interesting pop out of there that kind of caught your eye?
Well, I watched everything, and one thing I learned that I could cover it a lot better right here in front of the TV with my laptop in front of me than when I'm there and you're running around like crazy trying to get interviews, transcribed tape. And, of course, Xavier Worthy with a 4.21 officially timed 40 was the big news. And he's 165 pounds, 5'11 and a quarter, and he's the player who's going to have to play outside. He's not going to get in the mix running in the middle of the field. And the last guy whose record he broke, John Ross, was the 7th pick overall, I believe, for the Bengals, and a huge bust. Because you got to be able to do something besides just run fast. And Worthy had a lot of practice. I still believe Adonai Mitchell's going to go before him because he's 6'3", and he ran a 4.38. And at that size, doing that with that strength, and he played really well last year after he transferred for Georgia. But those UT prospects, Ryan Murphy, he's going to be a first-rounder. DeAndre Sweat ought to be a second-rounder. The Longhorns got some talent. And I remember drafts where I used to make fun of them because they didn't have anybody drafted. Baylor had a bunch. Now I keep my mouth shut.
John, any surprise about Dalton Schultz re-inking with the Houston Texans on that 3-year deal?
One of the things they liked about Dalton, they always heard that he couldn't block from everybody who covered him in Dallas and who watched him. Then he came down here. And I don't know what the deal was. Maybe they taught him to block because people here, whether you're wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, you have to block. If you don't block, you don't play. And he blocked pretty well, especially considering where they thought he was coming from. But mainly he's there because he's got good hands and he's smart and he runs good routes. And he's a really good performer with C.J. Stroud in third down, clutch situations. You need 7 yards. Schultz is going to get 8. You need 9, he'll get 10. And Stroud has a lot of confidence in him. So having Nico Collins, who I think will get an extension in the offseason, Tank Dell coming off surgery. He's been ready now for a couple of months. and Dalton Schultz. They're still looking for another receiver. It won't be a high pick. Tank Dell and Nico Collins were third-round picks. So they'll need one more receiver, and then they're going to be set at wideout, tight end, and quarterback. And then they'll need to beef up their defense because they play a first-place schedule in all these big-time quarterbacks.
John, what do they feel about the future of Xavier Hutchinson from Iowa State that they got late in the draft last year?
When I thought he would go higher, he had good size. I watched him catch the ball so well in some great games against Baylor, of course, and he flashed and he blocked really hard. He was a tough guy. He played special teams, and I think they certainly aren't giving up on him after one season. Another guy, John Mechie III, they traded into the second round to get him out of Alabama 2 years ago, and even though he was coming off a torn ACL, then when he underwent his physical here, he had leukemia. He fought that his second year. Last year he stayed healthy, but it's kind of like he was having his rookie year. And so I look for him, good things for him when he should be all the way back from the physical ailments that have plagued him. And so between Hutchinson and Mechie, those guys are going to compete for that third wideout spot with probably a draft pick in the third or fourth round.
John, last night here in Waco at the Foster Pavilion, Baylor with back-to-back exhilarating type crowds beat KU Saturday night. Last night down, looked like Texas was going to blow them out in the second half early on, but they found a way to kind of get back in the game, dominated the boards, and changed Texas quite a bit and forced them to get into foul trouble. Your thoughts about the Bears winning the last possible, at least for sure, probably in Waco basketball game against UT?
Well, it was special, as everybody knows. I was bummed. Good friend of mine, Gary Horn, I grew up with in Waco, and we're still good friends. He has 2 season tickets, and he offered Lester Zed and I the tickets so we could come see. We hadn't been to a game in the new building, and so we were coming. Then we had to back out the last minute. And when they were down 14, I texted Lester. I said, man, I'm glad we didn't make that drive up there.
Well,
and then, of course, I regretted not doing it. It was so much fun. And one of the things we missed about the Longhorns leaving, nobody gives a damn about Oklahoma. But anybody that grew up watching the Longhorns, as I did in Waco, it doesn't matter if they beat you 5 times in a row. When you beat the Longhorns in anything, there's nothing more special. And I go back to the Miracle on the Brazos, which I was covering for the Tribune Herald while I was a junior at Baylor. And that's a football game I will never forget, when Grant Teff ate the worm and they upset the mighty Longhorns. And I'm going to miss that. Don't know if they'll play non-conference or anything, but I'd like to see them beat the Longhorns in the tournament. Give another shot at them. Get 2 more shots at them in the conference tournament, NCAA tournament. It's like playing a bad round of golf. You sink a long birdie putt on 18, and you forget about all those bad rounds you had. You stunk it for a birdie, and you beat the Longhorns.
Thank you, John. As always, Hall of Famer
Thank
John
you, guys.
McClain,
Sick 'em Bears.
former Baylor, worked in Waco at the Trib, and also Baylor alum, with us every Tuesday, most every Tuesday in the 5 o'clock hour on Many Things NFL. He is unbelievable with his knowledge, insight, and sources.